Hi, welcome back to Going Green. I'm in this studio today with Bob Costa. He was with Pacific Water Management. Bob's been in the horticulture and the turf grass industry for 25 years, is it?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's great. And you're finally getting your just dues here because landscaping has become so topical lately, at least in my industry. And the cost of water keeps rising. And I know you do audits and you help people increase their irrigation efficiency to decrease their water usage. And the bottom line is to save this resource and also to reduce costs for people, right?
That's right, exactly.
Yeah, and that's so important because, like I said, the water rates are going up. So why is a landscape water audit important to people to start out with?
Well, you know, it's a good place to kind of evaluate your outdoor water use. And the way I approach it is try to look at certainly the irrigation system and how efficient it's performing, but also other elements of water use in the landscape like plant material selection. Sometimes things like cultural practices that you know, the manner in which we maintain our landscapes can have an impact on how much water it uses. So the focus is really just try to identify, you know, where there's opportunity to be more efficient.
Sure.
And then kind of present that to the client, and then based upon, you know, what the available budget is and what the water savings potential of those items are, to kind of develop a kind of an action plan to reduce water use and save the client money.
Do you see the same common problems over and over? Is it different at each site? Or?
No, I think generally speaking, you know, I've done close to 100 audits of residential and commercial properties, and typically you see the same types of problems, and oftentimes they're problems that the landscape professional that's maintained the property doesn't really recognize as having an impact on water use. And some of those examples would be things like sprinkler heads that are below grade. And so when the system comes on, the nozzle is deflected. That kind of affects the coverage.
I see a lot of that. Yeah.
And so when you have issues like that, what typically happens is that we tend to overwater to compensate for those areas of the landscape that may be stressed. So things like raising sprinkler heads, straightening sprinkler heads, checking nozzles, making sure that the application of water is uniform. And then the other component where I see lots of breakdown that really impacts water use is the scheduling of irrigation. So try to help clients perform you know, a little bit better evaluation of how much water their landscapes need.
That's good. Yeah, I was at your seminar just yesterday that you gave down at Rancho Cañada. And you said distribution uniformity is probably the biggest key, is it not?
Right, and you know, I think it's a concept that most people don't really understand, and it's simply, you know, what we try to do when we irrigate landscapes is to put the water on the landscape itself. And the more uniform we can, you know, accomplish that, the less water we ultimately use.
Yeah, it makes sense. I can't tell you when I'm driving around town how many times I see sprinklers shooting on the sidewalks or out in the street. And if I could just get people to adjust their irrigation seasonally, that's half the battle.
Exactly.
You know? But when you do a water audit, you give them a list of recommendations, and when you're done, obviously you give recommendations.
Yeah, the audit that I perform, you know, includes a summary report. Part of that is a list of recommendations. I usually break it down into, you know, 4 categories: cultural practices, which would include plant material selection, because sometimes, you know, just altering the plant material mix, moving away from high water use plants to lower water use plants can certainly reduce water use. And then more of the irrigation performance issues, things that relate to the design of the irrigation system. And then a lot of breakdown occurs in the area of both installation and maintenance. You know, irrigation systems need to be maintained to operate efficiently. And unfortunately, you know, for whatever reason, that component gets neglected a lot. So I try to break my recommendations down in those 4 areas, and then from there we, you know, kind of develop a priority list.
Now, people, when you give them the recommendations, can they do it in phases, or because, you know, money is always an issue, and sometimes people want to outlay a bunch of money all at one time. Can you do it in phases?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. I mean, the objective is to really try to focus on the areas that have the greatest impact. I mean, we want to, you know, certainly be conscious of budget, but we want to save as much water as we can. So we'll try to identify those and make those kind of the core recommendations. And then the other things kind of follow as money and time permits.
I come out a lot of myths out there. A lot of people think that less water is going to stress out their landscape, and isn't the opposite true sometimes, that they're putting on too much water?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. I would say that most, if not all, landscapes are overwatered, and the way that we can kind of get away from that kind of thought process is when we schedule irrigation, we develop a runtime for various stations or zones. We need to really try to create a number, a runtime number that stresses the plant. And then move from that, add a few minutes to kind of find that appropriate runtime.
Sure.
Oftentimes we just, we choose a number that we think makes sense, and oftentimes that number is, a lot more than what the landscape really needs. So.
That's great. Well, I tell you what, could you give us your contact information and your website and phone number in case people want to contact you?
Sure, absolutely. The business name is Pacific Water Management, and my contact telephone number is area code 831-235-2576. Website is pacificwatermanagement.com, and all of that information is, of course, on the website. So.
Yeah, and I want to tell people, I know you're a teacher as well, and you teach at Monterey Peninsula College, and I was at one of your seminars yesterday, and Bob's one of the better teachers as far as breaking it down, because I'm not real technical, and
right.
you explained things in a way that was very easy for me to understand. So if you get a chance to take one of his classes, I highly recommend it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but I thank you for coming in the studio today. And
pleasure.